Hi guys, slightly different one today. We're going to do a quick teardown on this, very quick teardown, and then we're going to have a look at bending this to our will. This is a Summit WM20. This is a controller for the Summit Network's Wi-Fi access points. The idea is you have a building with a large number of access points and then you control them all from this. It's kind of like the Ubiquiti cloud services or the stuff that Meraki push, but with the controller on site. We've tried to use this a number of times because we've got the access points and it just doesn't, it's not good enough for what we do. It is an elderly bit of kit as well, so yeah. But we have had this apart before, and I would admit cheating, the screws are out of this as well. And it turns out we have what appears to be a PC here that we can get into the BIOS of. Pop the top expecting to find a CF card like we find in a lot of the Extreme Network stuff, and this has got a full-blown hard drive. So we're going to tear this apart, have a quick look inside, and I'll go through it with you. And then we're going to see if we can get into the BIOS, and if we can actually get successfully into the BIOS, see what else we can do. Maybe put PFSense or a Linux variant on here, just to show how it, you know, that it can be done. These can be quite handy for home labs type setups and things like that. These type of appliances and things, because you've got a resilient, very solidly built piece of kit designed specifically for networking, and quite often it's a really good way of getting that extra PC to run a firewall or run a telephone exchange or something like that. So depending on what the spec is here, we should be able to do something with it. Big thing to watch if you're planning on doing this, most distributions like PF and FreePBX have hardware guides, which you should look at. The biggest problem we're running into at the moment is a lot of these distributions no longer support 32-bit processors, so we'll need to see what's in here, and we might have to get back in time a little bit. But the idea is to get you a quick look around this, get it powered up, get some screen captures done, and see if we can't get PFSense or Mono Wall or something like that running on it. So I'll flip this the right way up, and you don't have to look at the rest of the state of my desk, and we'll dive in. So if you've got one of these yourself, you may find that things look slightly different. There may be additional cards in these 4 slots. This one doesn't. I'm not sure what the options are. To eject the card, it's quite easy. We need to pull this over here sideways. I believe this probably had a button or something on it, and then it pulls straight up. And we are faced with what, in all intents and purposes, looks like a fairly straightforward embedded PC. My first concern with this was seeing no storage medium. There is some storage medium, so there's no problem with that. But we've certainly got at least one Broadcom gigabit network chip there for the management network, and then we've got 2 LAN ports here. There is a Marvel chip down there which may be the controller for those. You can see him down there. We have an unknown processor. We have what looks like 1 gig of DDR2667, so you know there might be something interesting in here, and then there's nothing on the back. So I think what we're going to do is the easiest way to deal with this is to pop this back in. On the inside, let's just move you a bit. Nothing too exciting. We've got our card slots. I'll zoom you in on all of this in a second. We have a power supply, and we have a hard drive, which is a WD Caviar 80 gig, and it is a SATA drive. So there's our storage media. So we should be able to bend things to our will. I can't do anything with the software on this at the moment, so I think we'll probably just blow that drive away if we can get that far. So let's just pull you out of here a second. Get a quick look around the chassis. I mean, this is kind of what I mean. This is designed for embedded networking applications. It is built like a tank. We've got a backplane there. There's no telling what those actually are. I would guess they are miniature PCI slots, but there's no way to know. We have a lovely power supply over here. We've only got 12 volts coming out of that, which, yep, just down there. So obviously we've got some rails being generated, possibly on the back of that board. We'll have a look in a second. And there's our hard drive. Let me just spin you around. So we've got provision there for more SATA ports. Now I'm fairly sure these are being driven directly off of the processor board down the bottom. We've got fans there, so there's probably some fan management going on as well. But yeah, these are most likely driven directly off of the processor board, so it may be possible to actually just solder those connectors in and go. And then the plate from the back. But yeah, there's really not much to this. There's not much point actually completely tearing it down because we won't learn anything. I do love how thick that backplane board is. Just trying to see where my calipers have gone. That's a lovely chunky board on there. Of course my battery on my calipers is flat, as it always would be. So yeah, it's a lovely chunky board there. I mean, we've got some good wiring here, and again, signs that, you know, this has been properly put together. You've got ferrule fingers, you've got ferrules down here. We've got some extra outputs on the power supply, not quite sure what those would be. Everything is cut to length. I'm not quite sure but that I would have done it like that. I would have perhaps put some braiding or something around there. But yeah, right, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to spin this around, power it on, confirm that I can get a connection to it, and we'll switch over to doing a bit of screen capture. But Lord knows what the microphone's like on my PC. Right, on a normal microphone now, not sure about the levels, they look good, but I suspect this microphone's going to pick up a lot of background noise. Anyway, let's turn this on. So we're connected to the USB port on the front. The USB port shows up as a serial port, in this case COM13, and 9600 baud is the connection speed. This is fairly common. It's either 9600, 115, 200 or something similar. I realise you're just looking at a black screen as well, and how exciting that is. So we'll power this on. I have made a few changes. I thought we were a bit low on memory, so I bumped that. Hopefully we should see some lines of life here shortly. There we go. So we've got a mobile Sempron, and we're in, and that looks like a boot. Grub, that's quite an old version of Grub, and we're in. So yeah, we've got some form of Linux here by the looks. We'll just watch this go through. We might get some information about what we've actually got here to play with. Obviously this proves that it's going to run an older version of Linux. We can quite clearly see the it's gone now. Yeah, we can quite clearly see the hard drive has been found there. We're looking for things at the moment. That's fine. I very much doubt we're going to be able to log into this. It would be nice to think we will, but probably not. Although that said, this is a console, so maybe we can do. I believe the Extreme Network switches also run a version of Linux as well. No, that's for switches. We don't want switches. WM20? Yes, it is WM20. Let's have a quick look in here. Yes, we accept the cookies. Just go back here for a second. Yeah, I didn't think that we'd be that lucky. Yeah, I can't even pronounce that one. Printables, how to use it, configuring, connecting to your controller, setting up data ports. Something in here must mention the console. You'd hope so, anyway. console port. There we go. Yeah, we did that. We know that works. So yeah, we've got here, basically you can do it, but yeah, you can't really don't really give any details on it there. So we are booting, we're in, so this works. So I guess the next thing is I will power cycle this, and I did see what looked like a BIOS there, so let's have a go at the BIOS. I'm going to go for escape and delete, which are normally fairly safe. You can hear me pressing now. Yes, I've got one of those lovely clicky keyboards. I am a keyboard snob. Come on, do something. I'd have expected something by now. There we go. So it's Phoenix BIOS. We've got a postcode up there by the looks. Right. So yeah, we've got a BIOS here. There's not a lot we can do with it by the looks. Try the usuals. Phoenix in capitals. CMOS. No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No. Summit. No. Right. This in itself is not a problem. I suspect this board is too old to have a boot menu, and I would imagine it's probably turned off, but we can try it. Actually, you probably can't, because I don't think we can send function keys through the terminal. We'll try it anyway. What we're going to need to do now is to get some way of booting it. No, we're straight back in. Okay, so first up, I'm going to plug a USB boot stick in there and just see what any attempt at USB booting does. That's a CentOS one that's just gone in there now. Oop, throwing memory sticks everywhere. Where did that go? So we've seen it. We're not booting from it, and that could possibly be, thinking about it, because that has a graphical boot screen on. What have I got to hand? Office. PFSense might boot. Anything that uses Vaser menus or stuff like that may have a problem, because this is an NVIDIA chipset, which means it does have graphics hardware, but obviously not much that we can do with it. I think somewhere, because most of my discs also use Yummy, so they do boot. So potentially our first issue is BIOS password. So let's just yank this board out. I've taken the plastic end cover off just to make it easier. So what we're first looking for is anything that could be a CMOS reset jumper. Sometimes it is just a pad hidden down here. Oh, we've got some mystery pads, mystery jumpers up here. I doubt we're going to be any of them. So what we'll do is pop out the button cell. Come on, there you come. Sorry, slightly awkward doing this one-handed. Do it there. We need somewhere over here in my tub of doom. Sorry, I'm getting off. Okay, it's not what I wanted, but it'll probably do. You should be able to just get in the side of the battery. It's much easier doing it with the right number of hands. Pull the battery out, and then what I generally do is pop it back in the wrong way. What you're doing here is shorting out two sides of the battery, so any residual power is removed, and then let's just pop her out again. Good. Now we've got two here that's possible. Going to be a BIOS clear. We're not plugged into anything, so it can't help hurt. Probably won't help. Just short that. Let's just pop this back in. Incidentally, the memory has been bumped on this. We only had 1 gig. I've now put 3 gig in there, which means if we need to boot from anything that needs a RAM disk, we should be okay. So let's go back to the screen capture. Right, so that doesn't appear to have worked. I touched on this briefly. Here we are on the PFSense download page, and you can see straight away we've got a little bit of an issue here. But we've got a USB memstick installed. We did used to have a USB memstick serial. Oh, there we go. So this might actually do us. So we'll grab that. We'll grab this and see what this does for us. I don't remember. So yeah, unfortunately the smooth wall now is not the smooth wall I used to work for. Smooth Wall Express is based on a very old version of the Smooth Wall product, and unfortunately development stalled on it not long. I'll say not long, but it probably stalled on it about the same time I left, which was about 2007. Smooth Wall is no longer Smooth Wall, it's owned by another company. I don't know what the implications for the community are, but obviously we've got Smooth Wall Solutions here. Yeah, so we'll keep this one on the back burner. We should have, we've got our PFSense image downloading there, and we've got our Ubuntu downloading here. We appear to have some broadband problems here at the moment as well, which means this video is going to take a month or some days when I eventually get around to uploading it anyway. Clearing that CMOS password might be a problem. If we can boot this into PF, then that's great. It means that we've got some options Linux based where I can force the Linux installations to use a serial port, in which case this thing's good to go. I do want to make sure whatever we put on does actually see the serial ports. I don't mean serial ports, does actually see the network ports, because although we definitely have 2 network cards there, potentially 3, sometimes with these they use ASICs or FPGAs to connect the network cards to the bus, and it may be done in ways that the actual hardware or just plain Linux drivers will not see. So that remains to be seen once we get something installed. So once again, I've got to stop you there and let this all download. I think I may actually change the hard drive out on here. I've got a elderly Mac store here that I can chuck in, and it would be nice to put this to some use. So I'll crack on and I'll be back with you shortly. Right, we've got the PF image down. I'm just installing Win32 Disk Imager to make the auto boot image, USB boot image. Part of the reason for using this over Rufus is I know this literally just does a straight copy of what we need. So all being well, let's just make sure. Yep, we've finished. So we should have. I did save it on my desktop. There it is. Yep, that's fine. So that will now create our USB image. That is the serial one as well. That's unfortunately the serial memory sticks I've got are the slowest in the world. But then again, I only paid a few quid for them, so that's absolutely fine. We are still downloading somewhere. There it is. We're still downloading the Debian install. Given the speed that everything else is downloaded, I suspect that's very little to do with our broadband connection today. Win32 disk imager, well worth having. It's a useful little application for making bootable USB sticks. It's quicker and less faffy than Rufus and what is the other one I use? I can't remember. Pendrive Linux. But it does just do a raw sort of image copy over to the device. It's also really good for making SD cards for Raspberry Pis and the like as well. So it's well worth having. It's a handy little bit of software. Just grab that from SourceForge. No, we don't want to do that. There's the information for that. Come on. It's hopefully not going to take too long, but I think I am going to have to cut you again until we get there. Right, so that doesn't appear to have worked. So yeah, I'm not sure what the best way forward with this is. I suppose we could potentially pre-install. Should we try that? Should we try pre-installing an OS? For that we're going to need a motherboard, compatible processor and some bits. So I'll stop you, we'll switch back to the camera and we'll try doing a pre-install on another hard drive. So we have our little test rig. We've got a monitor there, a hard drive, power supply, not an identical motherboard, but it's also an NVIDIA based motherboard with this is a Phenom processor on. We've got our boot disk. We have bodged onto a serial header there, which is bodged onto a cable there, which is bodged into a USB bridge there. So this should behave exactly the same way as that's supposed to. So I'll take you back to the screen capture now. Interesting thing is I have booted this to make sure this is going to work, and we may have just not been waiting long enough. But anyway, back to the PC. Right, so we're back over here. And obviously there is going to be a difference between this and the Summit board. This doesn't actually support console output from the BIOS. Well, I don't think it does. There may be an option in there to do it, but hopefully in a second. Just wait for the BTX loader screen to come up. There we go, and there we go. So this is what we expected to see on that Summit. Not entirely sure why we didn't. This may bode badly for actually getting this on there, but what we're going to do now is run through a Lightning PFSense install onto the hard drive there. Then we'll put that hard drive into the Summit and see if we can go. Booting these things from memstick can be quite slow because what tends to happen is everything is loaded to RAM and then we run from the RAM image. PF isn't a huge piece of software, but if you say boot something like if you have Hiren's boot CD set up to run from RAM, you've got to load that entire CD into RAM before you go anywhere, and if you've got low memory it can cause you some serious problems. This should go fairly quickly straight into the installation script. So we found a network card. There we go. So we are going to go with an ANSI terminal because I want colour. Doesn't mean we'll get it. So we're installing PFSense. I think I did that wrong there. Now what? I think we'll start that again and we'll choose VT100. I think I basically skipped out to a shell by the looks. Yeah, rescue shell. I couldn't actually see where the highlight was, so pressed the wrong key, lost it. So BTX console's back. There we go. Off into Bootstrap. We're going to boot single user. And now I get to talk to you while we wait for this to go through. I've tried to avoid doing screen captures and bits like this, but this is something different, and I think this is the only way to see it through. You could also, if you want, use this as a guide on how to install PF over serial console. If you're using a lot of the older type appliances and that do have normal unlock biases, some of the smooth wall appliances, some of the WatchGuard, I believe I've got an RSA Secure ID server that you can all install PF this way. There are changes you can make to Grub and SysLinux to boot to a console. VT100, that looks better. That will allow you to go through and run this installation. So yeah, we'll go with the defaults, we'll go with auto disk space, we're going to use the entire disk. Yes, we do want to arrive the disk. You can put it in the MBR. Yep, that's all fine. Commit that. PF doesn't take long to install either, so this should be fairly quick. Interesting to note that the VGA console that I have over here, despite all the stuff that we are going through and doing, all we've got is just basically the end of the boot messages. There's nothing else happening there, and that's what I'd expect. Now, if we were using something doing console redirection, then all of that would have gone to the serial port anyway. Right, this is just installing PF. As I say, it won't take long, he says. We just need to then reboot this, make sure it comes up, make sure that it comes up on the serial port, and we should be good. I'm not sure what all the cues are about. That's something to do with it. Something to do with the graphics there. Right, hopefully. Overall progress 89. It should just say please remove media and press enter, or words to that effect. Yeah, I'm going to find that. Installation is finished. No, we don't. And what are we going to do now? I said no. Nothing is happening. Should I have said no? No? Ah, there we go. Right, reboot. So the hope now is I should be able to pull out the USB disk, which I've just done. VGA side has just gone through, and there we go. So that's it. That drive will now boot PF to the serial port. So what we need to do now is stop that boot. We'll make sure it actually comes up properly first, and then we'll shut this down. We'll chuck it in the Summit box and see what happens. We're quickie. Sometimes this can sit for a while, waiting for the WAN interface to come up. Oh no, we're going to do some configuration. No, we don't want to set them up. So we've got one network card, so that'll be RE0. And we don't have anything to set up for a LAN interface. That will now sit there forever unless we give it a network cable, which we can certainly do. Configuring WAN interface again. That should now get an IP address from our network, which it just has. I never really messed with single WAN setup on PF. I'm not 100% sure what use it would be, but you can do it. User settings, web config, we're nearly there. There we go, that's up, that's ready to go. And we've got an IP address on my network. So I'm going to stop you, I'm going to switch that drive round, get plugged back into the console of the Summit, and we'll see what happens. Right, we're back with the Summit now. I have chucked a network cable in there as well. So if this works, we should actually be able to get a network link as well. Now in theory we've definitely got 2 network connections there. I suspect we've probably got 3. Oh, this looks good. There we go. We're into PFSense on that Summit. So let's see what happens. Now in theory this disk could potentially go into any other compatible or similar piece of hardware. We've just ground to a halt. No, they were off again. We've mounted the root, file system mounted clean, so this is looking good. We might actually be in here, and all being well, not quite sure what we're doing here. This isn't looking great. But also I don't know the pedigree of the drive that we put in there, or it might be able to might be trying to read something else. Well, it isn't looking particularly healthy, is it? I think this is possibly going to fall into the so close yet so far sort of level of things. I don't think we can do anything about this either. No. We have a flashing hard drive light as well. So what we might need to do is revisit this with another hard drive. The other possibility is we've installed in AHCI mode, or this wants AHCI mode. So I'll just turn that off. We'll put the rig back together and we'll try again. But we still have a problem. It boots AHCI mode fine on the other things, other machines, so it's not that. But I thought we'd have a quick look through the kernel messages and just see what we're getting and see if there's anything useful. So see what network cards we can see and things like that. So you can see straight there, right there, that potentially we have video of some kind going on. Just have a quick look. So that's interesting. This here could be something worth looking at. Let's just have a look, because that could also be display. Google is your friend. PFSense we're going to give a go in a second. Just see if we get clues to what that is. ACPI configuration is incorrect. I don't think that'll be causing us any real problems. So what else have we got here? CPU, yeah, we've got all of that, everything we need there. ACPI button, more warnings about that. Some interrupt issues. So to be honest, this is quite likely what our problem is going to be. There are all sorts of issues surrounding the Enforce chipset. Quite often when we've had issues with older machines or embedded systems and the Enforce chipset's been involved, it's just walk away. A good example is we've never had SSDs work properly with anything with that chipset in. So let's carry on, see what we're looking. So we've got a Marvel controller there. We have the NVIDIA network card there. And so we have NFE1, NFE0. So it looks like, and there's our Broadcom Extreme. So we've got all 3 network controllers here. DA0, Maxtor, that's our hard drive. USB disk. Okay, that might be worth pulling that out. I didn't realise it was still plugged in. So what have we got here? PID, UID, that's cool. So yeah, something has gone horribly wrong with mount here. It's possible this is RAM related, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to swap the original memory back into that and see if that helps it. But I suspect what we're actually looking at here is issues with the NVIDIA chipset. We'll try the PFSense, see if that's any different, but yeah, not hoping for much. So I've just put the original RAM back in, I've just booted that. I say I'm not really expecting this to be any different. And off we go, we're booting, here we go. I suspect we are going to get exactly the same problem. They were saying there was, you get a good rundown just looking at this of the actual hardware in the machine, and obviously all this hardware is there, but we don't physically have all the interfaces for it. I wouldn't be surprised. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. It might do it. You're going to do it? I think we're in. We are in. So there we go, bad RAM. I suspect I suspect I know which stick it is, but we are in, and we're going to need to see what we get here first in terms of interfaces, and then work out how we're going to get this to talk. There we go, we're in. We have one interface, RE0, which is not connected, so we want to assign interfaces. There we go, we have three interfaces. We have two NVIDIA interfaces and we have the Broadcom. I would say the Broadcom wants to be our LAN. So if we have NFE0 as our WAN, and the LAN will use the nice Broadcom because they are good solid chips, and that'll be NFE1. Interesting thing here, if you use auto detection, what it'll do is it will then look to see which interface gets a network up event, and then say, well, here you go, this one's just come up, so this must be the one you want. If you've got a machine with a vast number of ports on the back, it's by far the easiest way of doing it. Unplug everything, and then when you get to WAN, when you get to set up the WAN card in here, sorry, hit auto detection, plug the WAN in, and so on and so on. We are back in. We won't get anything on the LAN yet. Mostly, no, I don't want to do that. There we go. Mostly I need to be careful with the WAN here because I don't need a DHCP server on here. Let's just see what we can find to put this on. 192.168 dots. Where would there be a space? Nope, that's because I normally go with that one. 112. 192.168.99.11.112. There we go. That's a 24. We probably should put that in, just in case we want to see if updates or anything work. We're not using IPv6. No, we don't want DHCP. Yes, we do want that. So hopefully, 99 dots. What did we say that was? 112. It helps if we put the network cable in the right place. Now the other possibility is there may be some funny stuff going on here with PHYs, which occasionally happens. There we go, we're in. So this will be the usual defaults for PF, admin, PFSense. So there we go. We have Ye oldie Summit network manager running PFSense. This is going to be an issue. Right, we've just had a reboot in the background there. Now this is something that may be a problem. This is where you're into custom hardware and things like that. There may well be a watchdog on here that needs to be periodically reset. And if we're not hitting that watchdog, then we're going to get constant reboots. So we'll wait for this to come up. Hopefully it will come back. And again, this would probably likely be something that can actually be disabled in the BIOS. So we could really do with still getting into that BIOS. We're not going to get a WAN interface because there isn't one at the moment. Generally, the way the watchdog works is a timer is started. It will either be started by the application or there'll be a specific procedure that's gone through as part of the BIOS, and then that watchdog needs to be cleared every so many seconds or every so many minutes. And if it doesn't, it assumes that your program has died or the operating system has died and does a reboot. So that may be what's just happened here. So let's just make sure that we can not get anything doing that. We've got some hard drive life happening. Where do we go? And we now no longer appear to have anything happening there. I've got another screen which you can't see that I'm using here. So yeah, our network adapter is up. There may still be startup things going on. And I'll say this isn't a blazingly fast machine. Let's say we've all gone very, very quiet. Let's just have a look at a shell here. Too many dots. So yeah, this can see Google. Let's just leave that doing a ping. Let's not click the wrong window. I mean, half of the battle of one of these is getting the hardware actually up and running and to the point that you've got an OS that you can control on it. If there is no watchdog silliness going on here, and I suspect there isn't, I think we may still have some memory issues. Then now the battle's on to get this to behave the way you'd expect it to. There's parameters for the kernel that can be tweaked. There's modules that can be installed. You know, you now have full control of this. You know the root login, you know the root password. We can start looking at ways of getting that CMOS password back and generally work from there. So we're not quite there yet because PF is not behaving itself as it should, but I'm not seeing a reboot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the plug on this again. Because the other issue is we are quite low on memory, so we might be seeing a sort of touch of memory starvation going on here. And let's see if we can get just a little more memory to work with. So I've just chucked one of the 2 gig modules back in, make sure that's in, turn it on, make sure it boots. Sorry, I'm going to adjust my microphone because it's not comfortable in my ear. It's better. Obviously, you're now in a situation where you're generally looking at machines to have about 4 gigs of RAM.
no less. And especially when you're looking at 64-bit installations, having 1 gig of RAM, you're pushing your luck a bit. This is also an elderly 64-bit processor. This is I believe this is possibly a first generation AMD Sempron looking at it. So obviously you've got the security aspect of it, but it may be worth winding it back to a slightly earlier installation. And now let's see if we get this problem again. There we go. So it would appear that RAM module I've just put in is suspect. It could also be, you're sliding off my head, put a 1 gig in. It could quite possibly be as simple as this unit cannot deal with 2 gig memories modules. This is DDR2, which for an elderly system I find slightly unusual. The more powerful systems that we were producing at Smoothwall at the time were still only using DDR. Let's see what we get this time. But we've proven this route works. I could now try this with Debian. If I got a Debian install on here and running, that then opens me to downloading the various tools for doing CMOS resets. I have done a hard CMOS reset on here, as you watch me do, so I don't suspect that will help us, but we may be able to recover the password from the BIOS. It's also a possibility that we'll have to stick with the memory that's in it. Nope, we definitely have a duff sim, so we'll put that one to one side. Where is my command window? I closed it. Let's just stop that until we know that we're up. I mean, we've got all the details for the processor there, so we could go and have a look. That has that just rebooted? No. There we go, we're in. Now we've got to remember this is where this rebooted. I am just going to run through this as quickly as I can. I'm not setting anything up. One interface is DHCP, yep, we're happy with that. That IP address we're happy with. Admin password. Will it let us leave that as the default? Yes, it will. What I could do with doing with very quickly is make sure that we haven't turned this back on. No, we haven't. As you can see, this is actually running fairly snappy now. Status dashboard. It was. It's probably now gone to sleep again. Oh. Do we get a dashboard? Are we not allowed to? Oh, okay, yep. There we go, there's our dashboard. So there we go, there's some information about it. We don't have any built-in crypto. For a brief time, there was an insistence that the CPU for running PFSense had to have crypto in it. That didn't last long, thank God. And there we go. We've got 1.5 gigs of memory. Our CPU isn't particularly busy. We're not actually doing anything. We've got 2 interfaces showing, and we can probably enable opt1 as well. Apply changes, status, back to the dashboard. Obviously I know my way around PFSense, we use it a lot, and I'm used to a substantially faster machine, hence me steaming ahead. But there we go, in theory this is up. This is now a working PFSense box. It's probably not going to be a blazingly fast PFSense box, but it certainly would be usable. I suppose one thing we could quickly do is if we go into the system logs and just have a quick look in here, make sure we're all happy. You can see in the background here the main console. Sorry, I keep forgetting where I put it. Right, somewhere on my desk we have, or had, there it is. Right, we have a 4G stick. Let's see if we're allowed to plug this in. Oh, it's easier said than done. Who on earth came up with bendy USB connectors? There we go, we're in. And that's just caused a reboot. Not that surprising. These things draw a hell of a lot of power, but I also want to be 100% sure that wasn't another Watchdog reboot. What's going on in the USB world? Found anything? Hawaii Technologies at USB bus 0, U3G0. So that's actually found the it's actually a 3G one, isn't it? Yeah. So that's actually found the HSDPA modem that we plugged in the front. So that's a complete little solution there. Ways we could take this further, we can see that it only uses a 12 volt power supply. It doesn't use any other odd voltages. So this could in theory be quite easily converted to a mobile device. Thinking about it, that might be something that we'll actually look at doing and using it in one of our vehicles. We've got dedicated machines for most of the vehicles which are based on Core i7s. We've got access to the hardware and everything like that, so you're not necessarily going to need it for that, but it might be useful out in an event or something as just a small solution, or maybe it's something we could put in our stock to loan to organisations. You never know. Right, let's just have a quick look then. We are back up. It's probably going to expect me to log in, or just not work at all, which is quite possible. With anything like this, once you've got it to the point where you're happy with it, test, and still test until you're happy that it's behaving the way you want it to. There's nothing worse, and I see so many people do it. They get to this stage, yay, it's working, I've done it, and it goes into a live environment. If it's going into your home, then maybe it's not quite so important, but it's still going to be annoying when it eventually starts doing silly things. If you put it in a live commercial environment, to be fair, you shouldn't, unless you know very well what you're doing, be putting something like this into a live commercial environment. If you've got a machine that then develops random reboot problems or other issues, then it's not going to do you well. I mean, this is quite obviously not quite right. Did I open another one? No, I didn't. See, we've lost it again. But with some tweaking, playing, finding out what's going on, looking at logs, it's probably rescuable. I'm not going to bother with PFSense now. We've got this working. We've got this working as well as I think we need to. This would be down now for someone else to have a play with it and get it to where they want. All I did want to have a look at, if it will allow us to do it, is can we use link type PPP and CUAU001 U1, right, CUAU1 is more than likely going to be our console port. You don't want to touch that. These two will be the endpoints of the modem. So yeah, you pick one of those. Quite often with these, unless you know the modem, you've got to try both. But you go through there, set up your PPP. That will then show up as an interface, and happy days. You've then got sort of 3G or 4G WAN access, and then you can go through and mess about in here, set up your groups, set up your gateway groups, and then start setting up failover and things like that. I might run through a brief getting PF setup with failover at a later date, but for this video I think that's going to be it. And so there you go. We've taken a piece of hardware that was, to be honest, no use to man or beast. I think that's just rebooted again. Let's have a look in that console there. There we go, that's rebooted. Right, so we've got a watchdog problem with this. But yeah, we can work on that. We've taken a piece of hardware that's no use to man or beast that would most likely have gone in the bin, and hopefully we've made something useful out of it. I'll play with it a bit more. I'll potentially look at how we get that watchdog reset going. I'm pretty sure there is a package for PF to deal with watchdogs. We've left the original drive intact, so hopefully I can go in there and poke around and find out how the watchdog is working. But there you go. I mean, I don't know what else I can say on this. It's saving stuff that would otherwise have gone into landfill and repurposing it. You could probably upgrade that processor to a full mobile Athlon. You could potentially bump the RAM. You'd need to look at the chipset specs to get an idea of how far you can go with it. But yeah, a useful little box. And obviously, potentially, we've got those 3 slots that we might be able to put more hardware into. Anyway, thanks for watching. I know I've rambled a bit, and something different, and I hope you enjoyed. Take care.